welcome into this week's episode of Tap Tap Cast, where we are going over everything Pokemon Go PvP related. I am Amanda, also known as Lundberger.
And I am Martijn. You may also know me as Ineloquence. Yes, it's getting a hot summer now, Amanda, and this episode's gonna be about that one event in the summer. That's gonna be the World Championships. How do you feel about it?
I am super excited about it. I'm sure you're also very excited because you will be competing. I have to ask you ahead of time. Do you think that you are going to take home the gold here? You were like
Absolutely not.
theoretically one of the. You really don't think
I,
so? You're
Amanda,
always
I'm
so
losing my
confident.
mind. I'm losing my mind on building teams. I have Pelipper on my draft right now. It's not
Oh
going okay
wow!
with me.
Oh wow! But you
it
love Pelipper.
Listen, I always have that phase. Every
Yeah,
time
yeah.
before team building, I have that phase of putting like Pelipper, all my favorite Pokemon on there. So
Hmm.
I'm not doing well right now. I think I'm just gonna leave it until I get on the plane. And use all the time on the plane to think about it. So that's
Yeah,
gonna be
yeah.
something. And another thing that's also coming is Adventure Week, right? This time
Right.
it's not just Adventure Week. I believe it's very hatching. There's a lot of hatching in this event. Evolved.
Hmm. Hmm.
After there's gonna be a rocket event. So I'm thinking maybe there's gonna be some cool Pokemon in there. I can get frustration off, right? That you can tee them off with rocket events.
Yeah, I mean that's like the very few times a year that there are these rocket events. You can use those charge TMs to be able to go away with frustration. I just got a really good Shadow Piplup. The IVs are actually I haven't run it through anything yet, but I'm like, okay, this is gonna be my Empoleon. So
I already tell you something. If you have a really high defense Empoleon, you have a Lickitung ball point. You can win that
ooh,
matchup
okay, okay,
much
all
better.
right,
So
all
that
right.
is an important thing to keep in mind about Shadow Empoleon. I was hoping it would be Shadow Pelipper, Lurgan Rocket probably as well, but not yet, not yet. So yeah, and then the other exciting thing that's coming up, Amanda, is Poplio Community Day. That will be after the World Championships, but it's finally getting Hydro Cannon. I believe as of now, I believe in the main series, Sparkling area is a water type attack, but so far it's been released or being revealed to be a fairy type attack in Pokemon Go.
Yeah, do you think that they're changing it for Go, or do you think that maybe the release is just not quite up to date with what the actual moveset is? To be fair, either one of these could be a true
It's
statement for
true.
the game.
It's
So,
true. I pray that they're like, you know what? The other one's got like a dark type attack, right? Darkest Lariat and Spirit Shackle, which is not a grass or a fire type attack. So I'm hoping they keep it a fairy attack and then
mhm.
a fairy fast attack because Charm, Amanda, takes way too long. I know I'm a Wigglytuff addict.
You are, yeah,
I have
yeah. I mean,
Swift now, which is wow, one charm cheaper, but it's still too far and too long, right?
yeah.
If you can get to those Hydrocan a little bit faster, then Primarina would excel a little bit. So
And
I'm hoping.
you're not a fan in general of Fairy Wind, or
No, it's like
no?
Mudshot, which charges like quickly, but
Hmm.
it's just weak, right?
Yeah.
There's very little fast attack pressure, and the only times you really like it is if you farm like a Lantern down in 5 Mudshots or a Sableye in 5 Fairy Winds and still take like 20% damage in Shadow Ball. But anyway, no, I'm not a fan of Fairy Winds. There needs to be some like in between ground, something like a Volt Switch for Fairy Winds. I'm kind of hoping it's gonna be that.
Okay, okay, yeah. Well, we'll have to stay tuned to see if they will switch it back to a water attack like in the main series, or if they will keep it as the fairy attack. Also, while we're talking about attacks and movesets, just a reminder for people that this meta that we're using right now for the Worlds competition is the same meta that was used at NAIC. So I think we're going to see a lot of interesting picks. Do you think it's going to be much different with the release of a couple new? I see you putting your finger up, so you
Yeah,
have
yeah.
some ideas. You're cooking.
Gudra, that was
Gudra.
not there at NAIC because that was released on NAIC. So that'll be one single difference, which I think will be a small difference because I still think Azuma's going to be very meta, right? So
Hmm.
dragons
Hmm.
are going to be struggling in general, especially when they face off against my Wigglytuff. I will not feel sorry. And then Shadow Cresselia also is going to be released during Adventure Week, but we're gonna go through a bigger breakdown on that later. I don't think it will have a lot of impact on the world's meta, and I think at NAIC was more of a preview of what's to come. Right? Usually,
Hmm.
those first tournaments in the new meta is like people trying out Pokemon to see if that works in the tournament. So NAIC was just a first showcase, and I think there's more to come. I think Charge Bug probably the number one Pokemon that's going to be at NAIC.
Yeah, at Worlds, you mean?
Worlds, thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes,
No,
way too long.
It is funny that you mentioned Gudra, Martine, because our guest this week is actually known for his Gudra gameplay.
Really? I thought he
And
was
this
known for
was
his Ampharos gameplay.
that is also true. I mean, now that Gudra learns Thunder Punch, maybe he's just kind of upgrading, and maybe he's just a Thunder Punch game player.
Or maybe he lost another bet.
We'll have to find out because we're going to go into our guest. Who do we got on it this week?
It's Butters!
Woo!
All right, here we are. There he is, the man, the myth, the legend. It is 2OButters. Welcome on, Butters. Good to see you. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. I feel good. Wait, hold on. I thought you guys were gonna do a intro with just you two and then bring me in. What happened?
Oh,
No,
we
already
already
recorded
did it. You're ruining the behind the scenes magic. We've actually already recorded the intro without you here, so we didn't have to make you suffer through it. So
No, I was so excited. I was like, I'm not gonna be able to watch the intro. I'm just gonna get in the mood of this. But I mean, congratulations to everyone listening right now who has already heard the audio. But yeah, I'm doing fantastic. Good to be here with two friends. Thanks for having me.
for those who maybe don't know who you are yet, why don't you give a short introduction about the 2OButters?
Yeah, I go by 2OButters. My real name is Steven Sanders, which was a surprise to a lot of people in the Go community when I first started casting. But yeah, I've been casting for a long time. I've been playing a bit competitively. I did Sylph at the very beginning, just like everyone else. And then I kind of just fell in love with casting, even before all the championship series stuff when I was doing Sylph. Like at that point, I already liked casting more than I liked competing. I still really enjoyed competing, but that was definitely my passion. So I've been pursuing that. Had the opportunity to cast a lot of battles in the championship series. So really appreciative to the Pokemon Company International for that. It's been a really good 2 years, but I'm known for more of a spice player. I like to bring the spice. Remember back in the day when Martine was getting first streamer to legend. I was number 2 to legend with some spice back in the day. I've had some top Go Battle League placements. I did okay last season at Go Battle League. This season still a work in progress, but I like to have creative solutions to problems in the meta, and that's what I try to do, and that's what I appreciate also while casting.
Yeah, we since again, you haven't heard the intro yet. We did talk a little bit about your spicy gameplay in general because we were talking about Gudra and we were saying that you were using it even before it got its updated attack. And then we were talking about Ampharos as well. We're saying maybe you're just a big Thunder Punch fan.
No, it's because I liked Gudra before when it was spicy. Now everyone plays it. Now it's not spicy. Now I have to drop Gudra. Gudra was my baby, but now it's grown up into a real Pokemon, and now I don't play it as much. I still really like to play it. I do like electric types in general. I like Ampharos more in Ultra League, which is funny because my best placement ever when I got number 1 on the leaderboard was with Shadow Ampharos. So I've always liked Shadow Ampharos. And I think there's just been this balloon effect of like me thinking that Shadow Ampharos is good for Great League. There's just a lot of misconceptions, a lot of rhetoric, I will say, from a co-caster of mine, just trying to bash the Pokemon. Like
Did you lose a bet to him?
No. So he's the one who like I was just like, all right, you want to know the actual story? I would like to say the story because every time I try to tell the story, he just cuts it off. Yeah, okay. This is the story of Shadow Ampharos or Ampharos in general. So it got, I believe, Brutal Swing in an update a while ago. I don't know, maybe 5 seasons ago or 4 seasons ago. Who knows? It's been a while. It's been a while at this point. And then I looked up shields of like a 1-0 shield of Shadow Ampharos versus every Pokemon in Open Great League, and it was with Volt Switch, Brutal Swing, Focus Blast. It like technically has perfect coverage. So I'm like, hey, like if you get up shield with Shadow Ampharos, it's nuts. Like it's a really good closer, and that's what I posted. Like that was my post. I was like, you're up a shield with Shadow Ampharos, and then like Caleb says like there's no way anyone is gonna win any game or any tournament with Shadow Ampharos. And I'm just like, at first I'm just like, okay, like. That was a weird response to me saying it's pretty good up energy, and then he doubles down and says like on his own accord. I didn't like bait him into this. I was just going about my life. Then he's like, if anyone wins a tournament with Shadow Ampharos, I will transfer my Bastion on. And then I'm like, okay, like no downside here. Like, sure. Like, I don't even have to give up anything. Like, I'm not even saying like it's gonna win a tournament. I'm not saying anything. I'm just like, okay, there's no downside. I would love if he transferred his Bastion on. That sounds fantastic. So I accepted. I'm like, yeah, sure. And then that's where the problem started, because so many people wanted him to transfer his Bastion on. They started playing Shadow Ampharos. But the misconception is that I was saying like, hey, Shadow Ampharos is so good, it's going to win a tournament. It's more that I'm just like people are playing Shadow Ampharos. I'm like, cool. I hope you win. I hope he transfers his Bastion on. Like, and then it just, I think I'm known for electric types in general. So it's just kind of, it's
it all went down from there. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, well, we have a surprise for you. We also have Caleb waiting, who heard all of this, and he's not gonna tell us the story.
Yeah,
that's interesting. Yeah, I know of your affiliation with the electric types. Why did you drop Electrode in the first place? That was your first favorite electric type, no?
yeah.
It's not like your signature Pokemon. You still have it as your profile picture on Twitch. Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, when I first started streaming, I guess like when the pandemic just started, and we just started having Go Battle League from home, like where we could stream and like we didn't have to walk anymore. Remember when we had to walk for Go Battle League? Yeah. And so once that happened, I started streaming more, and I don't know if it was like a certain cup. It wasn't like I was just playing Electrode in Open Great League. There was a certain cup that I was playing it that I really liked, Hyper Beam Electrode. And it wasn't a meme. I was actually like pretty high elo and hyper beaming people with Electrode. And I was like, this is so sick. I love this. And at the time I just started streaming. When you just start streaming, then you kind of choose like some emotes, if you have the opportunity to, if you get like affiliate or something like that. So I was like, I really love Electrode right now. Why don't I make Electrode Pog? And that's like my my symbol, because it turned out really good, and I love Electrode. I love electric types, so I still love Electrode.
Yeah, it's funny that you say you love electric type Pokemon, because I mean I feel like the mascot for Pokemon is an electric type Pokemon.
True.
You're even wearing it on your shirt, but you're not even mentioning. You're like, I love electric types, except for the most well-known one.
Well, Pikachu gets a lot of love, so I'm just spreading out the love to other electric types. And electric types are not really built for Pokemon Go because of the way that their stats are distributed from the main series game. They're really high in speed in the main series game, and that translates to attack in Pokemon Go. So they're super attack weighted, no bulk. I mean, Lantern has done really well, but we'll just call that a water type that dabbles in electricity. It's not a true electric type.
That's how you feel about Lantern. It's not like a true love like Ampharos or Electrode is.
No,
you don't have love for it in the same way.
No, I don't. It's like it's like a stepchild. No, that's actually rude. But I think it's just more that it's so bulky. It doesn't play like the other electric types, and it's so alignment oriented too. So it's like the things I don't like, which is bulkiness and alignment oriented, and it's unfortunately the most famous electric type. So it's kind of a weird situation for me.
Okay, another electric type then. One more electric type that I want to propose. Magnezone. Yeah. What do you think?
Oh, it cooks. I mean, I feel like Paul Lasha, we'll talk about trainers later, I think you mentioned, but Paul Lasha is like my favorite trainer in the championship series now, because she put on such a show with that Shadow Magnezone. I know other trainers did really well with it too.
Yeah, and Liu, one trainer used in Liu.
Yeah. The first one. Who cares?
Yeah. Wait, is that you, Martine?
Yes, that was me.
Wait. You were the first one, but you didn't win with it, though. But she didn't win either.
I got top 3.
She got top 3. Yeah. Okay, fair enough. You know what? Fair enough.
Kanan was the first one to win with it.
That's true.
Yeah, true. Against Steinar, right? He beat Steinar in the grand finals. That was really nice. But I can't find a rhythm with it personally in Open Great League. I find Shadow Magnezone or Volt Switch really clunky, so I'm not great with it. But I love when I see a trainer like Martine or Palasha go off with it. So it's definitely it's gonna make an impact in Worlds. So it's gonna be a fun Pokemon. Definitely gonna be one of my favorite Pokemon.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's definitely a Pokemon fun to watch, right?
Yeah. Well,
Um,
let's talk a little bit about Worlds because it's just been announced today, in fact, that the casting roster for Worlds, and you are at it once again on the roster. Congratulations, my friend. Yeah, really looking forward to it.
Thank you, and congratulations to you as well. It's gonna be
Thank you.
really fun. It's always an epic world championship. It's kind of weird how it's like I don't know about you guys, but like this is the biggest break in the season for Pokemon
mhm,
Go, right?
yeah.
Like
Hmm. Hmm.
between NAIC and Worlds, it's like a 2 month break. So it's like almost like the summer, almost like the off season. But now it's almost August, so the high or by the time this is out, it's gonna be August. The hype is already ramped up. We're gonna find out who's gonna win the world championship in a little over 2 weeks. So I'm feeling super stoked and grateful to be a part of it all.
Yeah.
You guys are congratulating each other, but why are you not congratulating me? I'm
Because
winning
you're
it.
yeah, I was gonna
Yeah.
say because you're gonna get fourth place and it's gonna be
I'll have a
amazing.
trophy. I'll take it.
Yeah.
I'll
Yeah.
take it.
The real
What
question
did
yeah.
is
you
this
get
going to be
last? What did you get last year, by the way?
Tied 9.
Tied 9. I thought for some reason I thought you snuck into the top 8 there, but you did very well last season and definitely one of the we could say one of the favorites going in, Martine.
You think so?
I
I
think
don't know. I
so.
don't, I don't think I was the favorite of many. Just as I beat Pataman, then Rob and a couple others came to me like, yeah, now it's gonna be you. And then it lost 2 in a row. But regardless, I think when starting going in, I don't know. And I feel that effect now also comes in from NAIC, right? Because like top names that we had there, Axon, Doombug, Rice, they all seem now very mortal, right? Going in,
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
right? So it's gonna be difficult to determine a favorite for Worlds. First, I want to talk about like the comparison to Worlds last season. How do you feel about the Worlds upcoming compared to how it went last season?
Yeah, because last season was a different format, even where you qualified only for getting first place, second place, or a trickle down. So it was all trainers that competed and placed very highly. This year, there is the championship points as well. So you can qualify that way. So uh, it's a completely different format. And I really actually like the format that it is right now. That if you are able to go through the entire season, build up your resume, you can still make it to the world championship. So I feel like it has everything that last season has because it's always going to have the best players. But then it can have the underdog stories. It can
Hmm.
have those new trainers that maybe will peak at Worlds. You never know who's going to do their best in that competition. And that is kind of the beauty of Pokemon Go in a way that anyone can win a tournament. I mean, there are going to be the favorites, there are going to be the trainers that have a better percentage. But if you are at a certain level, you have a chance to win. So if you have an amazing day or you make an amazing team, and I'm actually going to flip this interview a little bit to Martine because you have the most worlds experience. So when I think back to last season, we had the top 3 from a certain region, but it was a top 3 of Axon, Rubik's Master, and Wadaj.
A
And going
one-time thing
into
only.
that tournament, you would say for sure Wadaj had the most momentum. Wadaj
Mhm.
at that
Hmm.
point was absolutely on fire. He was
He just won
probably,
AIC.
yeah, he was the favorite going into Worlds, and he just won a Sylph World Championship as well. He just I believe, won Hartford too. So
Yeah, it
he
was a
was
regional,
absolutely,
then, yeah.
yeah, he was
Yeah.
he was on fire. So we had 2 trainers, which is Wadaj and Axon, who are probably considered favorites because Axon, even before he became the world champion, was considered Mr. Top Cut. And then we had Rubik's Master, who obviously has an awesome resume, but I think he made it there because first off, he played out of his mind, but I felt like his team was really well positioned for the meta. Do you feel like going into a tournament right now, you are kind of considered one of those upper echelon players? Are you looking more to just play a consistent way like what Dodge or Axon did with a safer team? Or are you going to try to switch it up a bit, a little Rubik's Master style, and try to throw someone off?
That's a good question. We actually talked a little bit about it before this, and my answer to Amanda was that I'm absolutely losing my mind when it comes to building a team right now because I have no idea what to run exactly. There's a lot of core breakers in the current Open Grey League meta that are top meta, such as Charjabug, Azumarill, those kind of Pokemon. Lickitung has a lot of play and everything. Vigoroth is very hard to check if you have no Annihilate. So I am not exactly sure yet on what to use currently, and this is a phase I go through every time I go to a tournament. Pelipper's on my roster. I very much doubt it will stay on there. But as to your question, whether I would play it safe or not safe, it is likely I will play a little bit off meta. But I must say, I also played a practice tournament last week, just for to make some content. I used Lucario, right? I used Lucario and 5 hard meta Pokemon. Okay, like it was Lickitung, Gligar, Charjabug, Azumarill, as boring as it can be. And but I must say, it tastes pretty good, man. Hard meta tastes pretty good. So I'm not exactly sure. At this point, my plan is to make it Giratina's swan song, to make it its last dance.
Okay.
Mm,
But building with Giratina right now is very, very difficult. I'm struggling to cover Vigoroth well, so um,
yeah.
I'm
Well,
not exactly sure
just
yet.
what is the cup that's right now going on in GBL? Just to start practicing there
Fantasy
because I
Cup.
see literally Giratinas
Oh
every
no,
single
Giratina's
time
too
I
good in that.
open that
It's
stupid.
not comparable. Giratina is not comparable in that because
I was like, this is
there's only
unfair.
Wigglytuff, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
and in Open Great League, Lickitung is likely gonna be like top 1 or 2
that's
usage.
true.
Vigoroth maybe top 6, at least top 12. That's already 2 Pokemon that's hard shut it down. So
Yeah.
I don't think Giratina is gonna be as reliable. But as you know, I love RPS. So at the end of the day, right, you bring 6 Pokemon, and that's gonna be the keys that you have to puzzle with. So by the end of the day, I'm like, yeah, whatever. We're just gonna play what we have.
Martine, why? I've never asked you this. Why do you like RPS?
It's just satisfying to
Yeah.
have
Okay.
that
Okay.
locked matchup in and to predict exactly what your
Yeah.
opponent is going to do, right? When you know all the tricks in the book, when everyone's like, oh, if I say switch Gligar, then Feraligatr is not a counter. Butters, it's boring. It's just old, predictable, and you win easy on that. So that's why I like some RPS picks. Now it's not fun when you get RPS. That's where I don't
Yes.
like it. So
Yeah.
that is sometimes what I'm still trying to cope with. But if you always avoid Giratina with the Lickitung with Giratina, you usually are in a good spot.
I
That's
feel like
your tip.
yeah.
That
Like,
is
hey,
that's what I
just
did with that.
avoid
You
the
saw it.
Giratina. Yeah.
I feel like that is the reason when you play Go Battle League, you see so much RPS teams, like so many
Mhm.
Bastion, Razor Leaf teams. It is too satisfying. Even when I'm not playing an RPS Pokemon and I hard RPS them, it's just because you don't have to use your brain anymore. You're just like already won the game. And it's
Yeah.
just like you all the tension is gone. You're just like this game is over. You're just having so much fun. I feel like it's way too satisfying. We need to have something in Pokemon Go that can eclipse the satisfaction.
Only stress.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need something that can eclipse the
Well,
RPS magic. I don't like it, and it for me it feels good.
but listen. First off, blind format I think is way different, right? Because you have
Sure.
no idea what an opponent can
True,
have.
true.
But in Show 6, was my RPS team, was it that unappealing to watch?
No, so the thing is, it wasn't because, like you said, there is like they know what they're running, and then it's even more impressive that you make the calls, right? Because if it's in a blind format and you just RPS someone, no one's impressed. You just queued up and then you just RPS them. But if you actually make the right alignment calls, and if you have polarizing Pokemon that there's so much downside, you literally have to predict your opponent perfectly. So there is some sort of like satisfaction as a caster or a viewer to be like, oh wow, this guy's insane at his predictions. But for me, I wish it was a little bit more like, oh my god, he played insane, instead
Mhm.
of like, oh my god, he predicted him in an insane way. You know what I mean?
So my favorite strategy, and I'll tell you that right now, and this is not to play RPS per se. It is to put so much pressure on a team that my opponent cannot construct a team with a particular Pokemon and particular course that I can core break on that. That is, and unfortunately, Bastion has been on my mind, not just because it's an RPS Pokemon. People cannot play Pokemon like Azumarill without Hydro Pump, Cresselia, Lickitung, and Chargebug all together against a Bastion. It just breaks those cores. So that is more of the way that I like to do
But
it. And
but does it, like, if you play Bastion into Azumarill in pick 6 and then you just farm down the Bastion with something else, is it the end of the world?
that is assuming Bastion stays in like an Annihilate, but usually
Yeah,
Bastion
fair.
teams cover those. So
Yeah,
there
yeah,
comes a
fair.
little bit more with it, right? But
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
just about like if they lead Talonflame with Azura in the back, they're screwed.
Yeah,
That's the point of it, right? That I want to put a lot of pressure on those
fair.
teams and stuff. So there's a lot of different approaches to building a team. You can make it that you cover everything, that you play it as safe as possible, right? Some people like yourself hate RPS, and they fall because they're like, well, respectfully, not all of them fall. Some of them will, of course, but like into a risky team, you might fall just because you're like, oh wait, my safe Pokemon don't work. I have to think of different strategies, right?
Yeah,
It puts
brings
you
a
in an
new, yeah.
uncomfortable spot.
It's really interesting to me because whenever I'm casting, as you see a player progress, even into from day 1 to day 2 to Championship Sunday, you always see them playing safer. You always see them key in on 3 Pokemon that are the most flexible. I'm telling you, like, from the beginning of Pokemon Go Championship Series till now, as a team progresses and a player feels like they have 3 Pokemon that are safe in the meta, say it's like Lickitung, Gligar, and Annihilate or something like that, they, when their backs against the wall, they continuously go more flexible than more polarizing. So if you go the opposite, if you start getting further and further and go more polarizing, I do think that will throw a lot of people off, because that is not what people tend to do in those pressure situations.
Yeah, I think it's true. I mean, if you remember, we were talking to Arceus Aurelius because he was talking about his team composition against Colin Six in the Dortmund Regional Championship, and he was just saying that his team was so safe against Collins that he knew that he could basically play a certain way because Colin wasn't going to take a risk, that he was going to reliably do certain strategies that Arceus Aurelius could just 100% counter every time. And unless he played ABA or did some like really risky thing, that he knew that he had all the games basically in the pocket, and he was able to flip because of that. So I mean, it's true.
That's exactly something I had in mind for Hartford. I played Trevenant in there, and there was a Medicham Lantern Noctowl meta, right? So
Everyone's favorite, yeah.
I didn't hate it, but I didn't also play Noctowl. I did play Lantern and Trevenant. But what many players did, and one of my strategies was, if I have Trevenant, I core bake Medicham and Lantern. So if I lead Obstagoon and I lead into Medicham, they should never have Lantern in the back, so I can say switch Charizard. That was like always, and vice versa, right? If I lead Charizard into Lantern, they should never Medicham, so I can say switch Obstagoon. So that was a strategy I always had in mind. If you play into someone you don't know, I was too scared. I did not do it. Alolan Knight Power Snow at the time was the Pokemon I considered the most useless. It became the Pokemon I used the most because it was like a Pokemon that was like in between Lantern, Lickitung, Noctowl, and Trevenant, right? I'd play against all of those. And then I played against Magic Mason, and I'm like, this guy is not an idiot. He's not gonna play any ridiculous teams. So, 3 games in a row, Obstacle leads, Charizard in the back, right? So that is indeed something that might come in mind, right? If you know that your opponent won't do something ridiculous like that, so basically anyone but Ani Frank, then you can adapt your strategies to that.
That's funny you said that, because I was gonna say that's my favorite excuse when someone says I like they played crazy, but Caleb was saying that to me against like I was playing Onion Frank and he was playing a ridiculous line. I'm like, dude, it's literally Onion Frank. Like, that's the only thing you should expect is that he'll play a stupid line. Like, why are you surprised by this?
And he'll do it again if he loses with it.
Yeah.
I love it about him.
He's gonna
honestly.
run it back.
It makes him actually very unique. I love that about him.
No, he's actually the best, because sometimes before day 2, I'll go and talk to the competitors, and Onion Frank will come up to me and he'll be like, bro, I'm leading a Azumarill. There's no shot that they lead an Azumarill counter. 0% chance. And then I'm going to win game 1. I'll be in his head. And then I'm going to 2-0 easily. And then I go, I don't say anything because, of course, I'm not going to say anything. I mean, that is sensitive information. I have integrity. And then I get to go the cast. And the first thing he leads is the Azumarill, and it's a Charger Bug. It's just really sick.
Yeah, I like you. I like you. We always have, I think in Hardcore, we had some fun conversations just during battle. Like during battle, we just talk about his school and stuff. Very, very
And I
fun.
mean, you've been casting. You've been like you were one of our very first casters. Can you talk a little bit about how you even got into this? Because before that, like you talked about, you were a Twitch streamer. You had been making some Pokemon Go content. You realized that you liked casting, but that was always unofficial stuff. Like I think we did the World Championship for Sylph one time together, and you did the Speedies like Legends. I can't remember what it's called right now. Help me out, guys.
Oh, the Go Battle
GBLA?
League, former
GBLA,
GBLA.
Yeah.
Okay.
GBLA. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. So it's like you had obviously had like your skills starting to be honed, but what really got you into the actual play Pokemon circuit?
Yeah, so I originally like I did dabble in some sports broadcasting through school. So like it had been a passion of mine. I played college basketball. I've been a basketball player. So like basketball was one of my like first loves, and I at some point was like I you realize quite quickly a sport like that it's hard to be professional in it, and there's only like 500 at least in the NBA. I mean, there's a ton of opportunity overseas. Like I had teammates that have played overseas, and that's really cool too. But it was after knee surgery as well. It was quite clear. It was clear before that. I'll be honest that I wasn't gonna do anything else in basketball. So I was like, how do I be a part of basketball? And it always in the back of my mind, like sports broadcasting was there. I dabbled in it a bit, but then, like you said, the GBL came out, which I mean, obviously was a huge thing for Pokemon Go PvP. Before that, there was just Sylph and stuff, and I had been participating in Sylph, but I never went and I never participated in any of those like mega tournaments, which was like I guess the championship series before the championship series. With all these mega tournaments, like you have these Orlando megas pulling really good numbers. Like I mean, at the time, they were really big events. I always thought they were super cool, but I wasn't a part of that. And then I started streaming, and then I built a bit of an audience through streaming. And I think someone reached out to me like, "Hey, do you want to cast this tournament?" And I'm just like, "Sure, I'll try to cast the tournament." And the first time I casted, like I was just in love with it because I was already so in love with Pokemon Go PvP that I just had so much fun casting it. And like I obviously like at the time I was competing, I felt like I had a lot to contribute from just like a standpoint of like talking about the game, but then also like I felt like I could introduce some shout casting to Pokemon Go PvP as well, which you see in some other esports, and I feel like that's been my style a bit. And then from there, I just was kept casting the grassroots scene. So shout out to everyone involved with Sylph, and then also people I've worked with forever, like Miss Mystic or Nightwing. Like really, I started all with those grassroots tournaments, and then luckily, it kind of happened where no one knew this happened, right? Like you guys didn't know that Pokemon Go was going to be put on like championship series. I'll be honest with you, I didn't know Pokemon had like
Same.
esports. I'll be honest. So I didn't know this thing existed. And then suddenly, post pandemic, they got back into it and they had an inaugural crew. And I got very lucky to be a part of that inaugural crew. And then kind of the rest was history. But I did put in a lot of reps in the grassroots scene, which I truly enjoyed. And I feel like it really helped me jump into championship series.
Yeah, I think like I also didn't know about those championships. I think I heard about card games being a thing at the time, but because in the pandemic, of course, that's when most of us were playing this, right, and more getting into this, and they were not going at the time because of the pandemic. So yeah, I'm happy that of course we were included. The first one in Frankfurt EYC, first time we met.
Yeah,
You saw how tall I was there. I think I
did.
barely came to your shoulder, not even. No, that was
okay. I am tall, so yeah.
I
Don't feel
think
bad.
that first EYC was a real turning point, though. Like the first broadcast that showed, like, wait, this is for real. right? The first broadcast, the first official stream broadcast, because we had Liverpool before that, and like I think 70 people or something came to that, and everyone's like, yeah, Pokemon tournament's cool. But then UIC streams, and I think we had barely 100 people there. It was pretty cool.
Yeah,
Yeah, I like that. That was a kind of favorite one.
yeah. The thing for me, I didn't point out is like I was doing this without knowing there was like an end goal of like championship series. I was like doing like Sylph tournament, thinking like that's it. Like I'm just doing Sylph tournaments because I love doing this. And then, like you said, you go to Frankfurt and they start out with an international championship. So it's not like you even start out with a regional. So you just like get there and you're like, oh wow, there's like a 30-foot Pikachu back there. Like, and it like it's an international championship. If anyone out there has been to an international championship, the convention is always amazing. And so they'd be just plopped into the scene and join the card game and the video game series. Like it was really surreal. And then same with you. I'm like, oh wow, like this can be an esport.
Yeah, right. That was
Yeah.
what I want to say again. Yeah, it was just a turning point, right? It's just a turning point in where it actually came. Yeah, like you said, it started with an international championship, basically, right? There was one regional before that, and that was not streamed, right?
Yeah.
So that was interesting. Yeah. Butters, before Worlds, we're gonna have another Rocket event. Have you seen which Pokemon's going to be released?
Oh, I have seen this. I've seen this Pokemon. I got 2 rocket radars ready for this Pokemon.
Ooh la la.
Did you do any research?
Yes, I did. I have a whole page here of research.
You have a whole page. Okay. Yeah. Well, so have I. Enlighten us.
Oh, okay.
We'll get to compare notes here.
We get to compare notes. Okay, so I do think so. A lot of times, like these bulky Pokemon, like you don't really want to go Shadow. Like Registeel, you don't want to go Shadow.
Yeah. For the record, for maybe people who don't know, because we haven't mentioned what it is, it's Shadow Cresselia.
Yeah. We haven't mentioned the name. Yeah, Shadow Cresselia. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Amanda. Yeah. That is professional host here. Yeah, thank you.
I got you guys.
Yeah. So yes, it is Shadow Cresselia that's coming, and I believe it's technically legal for Worlds by the rulebook. Mm-hmm. We have no word on if it is officially legal yet, but by the rulebook of how they've played out releases in the past, it's legal. So, and not only does that mean that you can get Shadow Cresselia for World Championships, but that means that a ton of Shadow Pokemon that maybe you've been holding on to with frustration, you'll be able to TM it right before the World Championships as well. So a lot of these trainers that have been grinding or maybe even find, I don't think the new Shadow pool has any Pokemon that will be meta relevant, but it's more like you're going to be able to grind some other Shadow Pokemon that could be meta relevant. So, all right, let's get into notes, because like I was saying, sometimes these bulky Pokemon you don't want to be Shadow, but Cresselia performs a little bit differently because it really just comes down to dimensions and matchups, and if you can knock out with one Moonblast, if you can knock out with double Moonblast, if you can knock out with double Grass Knot, and you just play around with the 20% having the Shadow bonus or not having the Shadow bonus to just try to pick and choose your matchups. And after looking at it for a bit, it's clearly... to me, it is clear that Shadow Cresselia has a case to be better than regular Cresselia on certain teams. I wonder, Martijn, did you come to that same conclusion?
I wouldn't say certain teams. There are strategies with it. I feel like it's better when shields are down most of the time.
Okay.
The regular Cresselia does seem to pick up more matchups in 2-shield scenario. And what you also need to keep in mind regarding...
But who's 2-shielding Cresselia?
Lurgan Rocket. But keep in mind that from Shadow Rockets, the IVs are minimal 6 in every stat.
Yes.
Right? So the best you can get is, I believe, a 6, 15, 13 or something. And defense is actually very, very important on Shadow Cresselia. So that's a little bit of a buzzkill, let me say like that. Mm-hmm. You kind of always want a 13 or higher defense on Cresselia to get bulk points against Feraligatr or Carbink, and those are needed to win those matchups.
Yeah, so I actually found also there's important breakpoints with Gligar Shadow and normal as well. And that can flip the entire matchup with Shadow Cresselia.
A breakpoint or
And
bulk point?
sorry, yeah, bulk point. A defensive bulk point
Yeah.
against the Glygars. And same with Shadow Dragonair, where you take one more Dragon Breath damage, and then you actually lose the ones against Shadow Dragonair as a Shadow Cresselia, which is not ideal when you're trying to play a bulky Pokemon that will out neutral other Pokemon. But that is, I was looking at PvPoke this morning, and it didn't hit me yet that I'm like, why are my like rank 1s having 6 attack? Or my rank, I'm like doing defense weighted. And I'm like,
Yeah.
why is this 6 attack? Like, what is going on with this website? And then suddenly it clicked to me like, oh, he's already updated it to the Shadow IVs that are going to be the baseline. But I would say, I don't think besides those matchups, I went through like 10 different spreads. It doesn't change that much if you have terrible IVs to good IVs, but there are 3 to 4 to 5 crucial matchups that can flip. But overall, you're going to be fine with whatever one you get.
It's exactly that, right? That you don't want to miss out on crucial matchups.
Yeah.
Maybe you will lose to Clefable with low defense or a high attack or something. But Feraligatr is
That's
on
important.
a lot of teams. So that's kind of a matchup. If you bring the Shadow Cresselia, in my opinion, is not a matchup you want to miss out on. What I otherwise found is that Moonblast Shadow Cresselia picks up regular Feraligatr in the 2 shields, but loses to Altaria. If regular Cresselia has the bulk point, it would win that, right? Otherwise, it also loses that. Shadow Cresselia can lose to Dugong. As you said, can lose to Shadow Dragonair. Can lose to Shadow Feraligatr. Can lose to regular Gligar. Can lose to Spark Lantern. Spark. Peter Sparker. And can lose to Mantine. As opposing to picking up only Feraligatr in 2 shields. So that was my downside of it. But what I found cool, though, is that Shadow Cresselia can win Skeledirge in the 2 shields with Future Sight. So you need 2 baits. But at least it's
geez.
possible.
Okay.
It's possible.
But you never bait, Martine. So I mean, like that's the whole thing. You never bait.
You never bait.
I want to, Amanda, I know maybe you didn't do the full page research. I didn't deep dive in as much as Martine. But what are your first impressions of a Pokemon like Shadow Cresselia? Like, I mean, obviously, you just went through all the downsides there. Mm-hmm. Is there any upside to having that little more damage on any of these charge attacks?
I mean, I think overall, you would have to look at how relevant the Pokemon are in the meta that, I mean, and now that Martine's kind of listed off a majority of Pokemon that I think will be pretty meta relevant at Worlds, if I was judging between these 2 arguments for or against Shadow Cresselia, I would say it probably doesn't have as much play, but that doesn't mean that we won't see it. Because
okay, well, let me give you the 4. Let me give you the 4.
All right.
It's clear who's in favor of the Shadow.
So I just wanted to see, like, off the bat, I wanted you to disagree with Martine, but since you were agreeing with him, let's say the 4. All right. So the only thing is, also, if people want to run attack weighted Annihilate, you actually pick up a Psycho Cut breakpoint, and you can pretty much beat Annihilate with Grass Knot, like in a lot of situations.
Big, no?
What's that?
That is big.
You do that anyway with regular as well. You don't need Shadow for that.
But you don't really. You can beat it. Yeah, true. You can beat it with Grass Knot.
You kind of do.
You don't really knock it out with Grass Knot.
If you really hate Annihilate as Cresselia, let's say you lead Cresselia into Annihilate and you're like, I'm not gonna lose this. There's absolute 0 chance. Straight Grass Knot, shield everything.
Yeah.
You can't lose it. That's
but if for you non-RPS players that want to actually knock out a Pokemon without double shielding it, you actually get the breakpoint, and they can hold on to the Psycho Cuts plus a Grass Knot, but if it's on a swap and they took any extra damage, like it's really dicey for either the attack weighted Annihilate, like if you're going to try to go for the breakpoints and bulk points against Lickitung, which I don't know how much people care about at Worlds, or if you get super unlucky and you have an attack-weighted Cress, which might happen, who knows? You're already going to have 6 attack. Yeah. So maybe if you have even more attack, you get that breakpoint. And then also, Shadow Crest does guarantee the Goodra matchup where the regular one doesn't. Because one Moonblast plus Psycho Cuts knocks out, and it doesn't do that with the regular Cresselia.
Mhm.
If you have
Regular
an
can
H,
lose once, I believe, right?
yeah, exactly. If
Yeah.
you have an HP weighted Gudra, which I highly recommend, HP is weirdly the best, or stamina is the best stat for Gudra. You can pretty much be fine against Cresselia in the ones because you can take the Moonblast and you're not getting knocked out by the Psycho Cut. So
Yeah.
that's good. And you're actually better, I think, versus the regular Gator for Alligator without shields or in the one shields. In the
Mhm.
two shields, you might be in some trouble if you want to play it that way. But from the one shield matchup, you can beat the regular Gator, and the regular Cresselia loses to the Gator. But the thing is, Shadow for Alligator gets dangerously close to the one shields. You can still beat it, but if you don't have that bulk point against Shadow Claw, against a Shadow for Alligator, you're actually just toast. So that is one downside of this Cresselia, is that like you wanted to have high defense. I found you were mentioning Mantine. Shadow Cresselia beats Mantine in the ones, and the regular Cresselia doesn't.
Yep.
So you pick up Mantine. That's a huge win. But you do kind of flip the like you're better against Gudra, but then now you're worse against Shadow Dragonair and Altaria. So like in the ones and Altaria, you can barely lose because one Moonblast doesn't knock out, and you don't have the bulk to get to like 3 if they shield one.
One more thing about Alligator though, because I think you had the same simulations. That is if it has Ice Beam. If it has Crunch, Shadow Cresselia only picks up zeros.
Oh, against the Shadow Gator and the ones. I'll look at. Wait, actually, I can look at that right now. I'll do it live.
Look that up.
Yeah,
And
it might be.
Oh, I really hope I'm not wrong now.
I'm going to give the thoughts in the meantime. Psycho Cut, obviously fast generating, doesn't do a lot of damage. So there is some merit to having this fast attack, being able to hit a little bit harder to be able to get these farm downs as well. And everyone is running high attack Annihilate, I would say, for the most part, because they all, since there's so many Annihilates, everyone wants to win charge attack priority.
Oh, it's Tomahawk fanboys.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, there is definitely some merit. And now I find out that Martine's lying about the Mantine thing, and the
No.
Cresselia can
The
actually
Mantine,
win it.
you win twos, not the ones.
Okay.
You win twos as regular. Shadow doesn't. Shadows wins once.
So, all right. I mean, there's some more merit to the Shadow now. Now hearing both sides of the story here.
So, okay, you're completely right about the crunch thing. You just get absolutely shredded.
Yeah, you don't even get 2 attacks
because it's the same pacing as Grass Knot, and you'd get shredded. The only other thing that I want to say in favor of Shadow Cresselia is the Vigoroth matchup is actually better, because Vigoroth in the zeros is the softest of soft loss for Vigoroth. You really don't care if you're playing the zeros versus Crest. But because you get that little extra damage with the Shadow, you can beat Vigoroth and have a little bit of HP or more HP remaining in the zeros and the ones. I didn't look at the twos. I'm not a hard RPSer like Martine, but in the zeros and ones, which if you're playing Cresselia, you're playing in the zeros and ones. You're safer against Vigoroth, which is better. You would rather be more consistent against Vigoroth and not Vigoroth be able to swap into you and soft lose and it be no big deal. All that to say, I have come to a conclusion. I don't know if I know Martine has probably come to the conclusion. I know we've tried to sway Amanda both ways, but I already have a feeling of what I think is better going into the championship, in the world championship.
Are you trying to make people bring this Pokemon and then you put it on your process prediction? Is that what's going on here?
Now Martine's going to make if people win with Shadow Cresselia. Oh,
there we go. Yes, we have a bet.
Transfer by Giratina.
Hold up. That's not like as invaluable as a Bastiodon.
Yeah. But I have come to a conclusion. I'll say mine last, but I don't know if you guys have any more thoughts about the Shadow Cresselia. It definitely is, like, in terms of legendaries that come out with from radars, it is one of the more viable ones. So let's give it that at least. It does have play, but I'm curious to hear if you guys have a preliminary final conclusion.
I think we will see one at Worlds. Will it be on the winning team? Probably not. That's the way I'll say it like that. Like I think that definitely there's skilled players who are also crunching some IVs and saying, actually, you know what, it needs to fill a certain role on this team, where I want it to do exactly this, and then they'll put it on. Or some people would just be like, hey, it's new, it's a toy, I want to play it, and that's perfectly fine as well. So yeah, I bet we'll see a couple of them, but I don't know how high ranking it will actually go, because I do think most likely the bulk of the regular one outweighs the benefits of the more attack of the shadow.
Yeah, I think some matchups such as the zeros into Chargerbug, the zeros versus Leaky
Yeah,
Tongue,
Charger
and
Bug.
ones. Those are pretty important to have as the regular Cresselia. But you know what? If you play at a regional championship, Butters, maybe you should bring Shadow Cresselia. How about that?
Well, I still haven't given my final conclusion. I wanted
Okay.
to. I feel
Is it
like
going to be unanimous?
is if I feel like it's important to say both sides in an argument.
Agreed,
When
agreed.
you present the argument. But my final conclusion after looking at it this morning, I don't see why, if you're using it the role that Corselia plays in the meta right now, I don't see any reason to run Shadow Corselia over regular Corselia. There's key reasons. One, you have to look at the charge attacks and what it's targeting as a counter. So, like, I always decide whether to use shadow or non-shadow on like the dimensions of like what a charge attack does. And some people think I just always want shadows because it just does more damage. When
Okay,
you're
cool.
Cresselia, you're countering something that is oftentimes double weak to grass, like a Quagsire or Whiscash. It doesn't matter to have 20% more damage. Or you're countering a water type Pokemon that is kind of glassy, like a Feraligatr. And you actually don't need always to reach more damage on the grass knot if that Feraligatr has taken some damage somewhere else. And same thing with Moonblast. You're hitting a dragon type. Most of the times, a Moonblast hitting a dragon type is going to do a lot of damage. Does that 20% do that much more? I feel like your charge attacks doing super effective, already doing enough damage against what you're countering. And then that is why it's well positioned in the meta. But the reason it's good in the meta is because it's so strong neutrally and it's so bulky. So you're going to take away its best aspect, that it's so strong neutrally and so bulky and could get to a lot of charge attacks, maybe even get back to your timer, swap out. You don't want to take that away from Cresselia. I don't see any reason why you wouldn't just play the normal Cresselia. I don't see, unless someone's going to go Confusion, Grass Knot, and just try to double close with a Confusion Shadow Cresselia. I really don't see a reason to not run the regular, because the regular just does what this archetype of Pokemon needs to do better than
Got
the
it.
Shadow.
I have one more question while we're just talking about Cresselia, because you always mention it with Moonblast, which I think, do you think that this is the moveset of choice, or the best moveset for it right now in the current meta? Because there's some arguments for future sight. Martine gave a couple of them a little bit earlier, but I would say for the most part, you definitely need Grass Knot to be able to counter things going on. Also, it charges a little bit quicker, and Moonblast did seem like the better choice when we saw it at NAIC.
I think Moonblast is mandatory for dragons.
Okay.
It's a must.
So you're hearing it here, guys. You can make your own decisions on the Shadow Crest, but it sounds like everyone for now is saying go with the regular, and Moonblast and Grassnot are the choice picks.
I would say also try it out, because we could all be wrong too. But so Martine, you like coverage with your Cresselia because you like Moonblast because it gives coverage against dark types. So you don't like coverage with Giratina though?
We don't do Dragon Pulse. That's illegal. Look, we cannot be friends if you run Dragon Pulse. It's not a thing. You have your cheap charge stack is 55 energy on a Pokemon that's as bulky as a Sableye. This is the real world, Butters. We run Shadow Ball Omnis Wind because we can bait. And baiting is crucial in the game.
But you never do it.
Only when they shoot. Only when they shoot. I think that's one of my trademarks right now. I say always bait until you don't, right?
Yeah. That's fair. Pacing is so important. Like when you look at all the top 5 like best Pokemon in almost any meta, like they're always well positioned, but they always have really good pacing as well.
Yeah. Butters, what do you think is going to be the top 6 most common Pokemon for Worlds?
Oh, well, let me just put up Martine's Open Great League practice tournament.
Those are
Recently.
the graphics. Yes, very good.
You know what? I think there's something that I want to talk about a little bit. I don't know if we're going to discuss the meta too long, but Annihilate is going to be top 5 in the meta, in my opinion. But
Okay.
Vigoroth wins tournaments. If you
Mhm.
look at at this season as a whole, you look at the winning teams, the actual champion teams. There are so many teams, a disproportionate amount of teams with Vigoroth
Mhm.
compared to the Annihilate, which was pretty stunning to me when I was looking at the season as a whole. So we are going to see Annihilate, I think, it as number 1 usage. It could be different because these are a bunch of winners going
Do
into
you have
the
like
same
the numbers
tournament.
on that?
What's that?
Do you have like the numbers on that? How many Vigorts have won a tournament versus Annihilate?
Man, I can get you the numbers on that.
Yeah,
I
I'd
can
love
get
to
you the
hear.
numbers, but it's for North America. It's very
Mm.
high. I don't know how high it is in Europe.
That's because two
We don't
trainers
care about.
win your tournaments.
Yeah, fair, fair, fair.
Yeah, it's a driver, not car.
Yeah, yeah, fair. I'll get those numbers. But I mean, in compared to like the Vigoroth usage, the Vigoroth usage is actually quite low,
Mhm.
like in tournaments in general, and then to its actual win percentage in North America, it's kind of good. So I mean, I assume it's going to be Annihilate, Cresselia. I actually think it's going to be Charge-a-Bug that is going to
Mhm.
be ahead of Lantern in that top 4, and
Absolutely.
then number 5. Uh, what
Do you
is
think
number
Lickitung is
5?
going to be in like top slot?
Which one?
Lickitung? I think Lickitung is going to be number 1 or 2.
You think
Lickitung.
so? It's pretty
Interesting.
dangerous bringing that Giratina then.
Well, it was number 1 at Utrecht.
Yeah.
Did it stop me?
That's true. That's true. That's true.
Interesting. So you think now, as the meta progresses, like Cresselia kind of took the spot of Lickitung. You think Lickitung is now going to be like the king of that neutral pick?
Yeah, I think Lickitung is the one Pokemon that can deal with that core of Azumarill, Gligar, Charjabug, and I think that's going to be very common. That's the one thing Lickitung does, right? And then also Lickitung Mirror, of course, is neutral. Annihilate, you can win the one shields. So I think Lickitung induces a lot of neutral play. But what you also say, Vigoroth is a champions Pokemon. And
Yeah.
World Championships is a champions
Yeah.
tournament.
That's
Yeah.
true.
I'm not. I don't think. I'm not. I don't want to say that Vigor is going to be more common to Annihilate, but I do think the numbers are going to be very close between those two.
If you mentioned the most lethal trio is going to be Azumarill, Charjabug, Shadow Gligar,
Mm-hmm.
I know you would rather be the Vigoroth than the
Yeah, you
Annihilate in
rather-
this situation.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. The hard part is that Vigoroth just loses so hard to Annihilate. And since Annihilate
Mhm.
is such a popular pick, it's a very like you have to know how you want to play your Pokemon, especially because it's almost guaranteed that there's at least going to be a fighter on the other team. So if there is, you have to know how you want to maneuver around so your Vigoroth is never aligned on that. But again, if you know, some people are super fans of rock paper scissors, so they know exactly how they want to do that.
But that's the thing, right? Annihilate is the only Pokemon that shuts
True.
down Vigoroth entirely. In everything else, even Azumarill, Cresselia, Gligar, Vigoroth can win some shield scenarios,
Mhm.
and especially with energy advantage. So that makes Vigoroth just incredibly good. And like, even though we have 4 Spawn Lucario now, I don't see that. I don't think it beats Vigoroth actually.
Yeah, I'm not.
honestly, the thing about Annihilate too, Annihilate is so strong, but Annihilate really against the top meta is not a standout Pokemon. Like you look at any top 5 Pokemon in the meta, and you never say like, "Oh, wow, Annihilate shreds those." It's always like Annihilate loses to all 5 of those Pokemon, or it goes neutral with Lickitung, and it's
Yeah.
like, it is the favored fighter because I mean, obviously the typing's amazing, and then also its closing potential is way higher than something of like a Vigoroth. But
Mhm.
when you look at what I think is kind of the day 2, day 3 pattern of trainers going into their safer picks, I feel like you can bring Vigoroth because if you just have 4 picks that are safe, they're going to be top meta Pokemon, and they're all going to be fine against Annihilate. So if you're just picking these 4 Pokemon that are all strong against Annihilate, it's not like someone is just bringing Annihilate against you every game, and then you can start bringing the Vigoroth. So I kind of think that I kind of agree a bit that it might be closer in usage in the World Championships compared to how it's been all season, where Annihilate has been dominating the usage.
It depends, right? If you're really sick of Vigoroth, and if Vigoroth is the one Pokemon you might want to counter, that you're like, okay, if I don't have Annihilate on my team, it shreds through my team. People might use it for that reason. I'm not surprised if that's the sole function of it. And in fact, even with, like, as you say, it has really great closing potential. Annihilate with a shield up, not too bad into Azumarill, not bad into Skarmy, even on even shields some scenarios, right? So even in some of its worst positions, I'm also still considering Annihilate, because if I fear Vigoroth a lot, heck, I'll play double ghost, whatever. I need to shut down Vigoroth, I might bring Annihilate too.
And that's the weird thing too, is because no one fears Vigoroth either, because Vigoroth is always just like this utility tool that it's like, okay, these top meta Pokemon like Shadow Gligar, Azumarill, or Cresselia, these Pokemon are coming out in my matchup a lot. I'll just put in Vigoroth because it's kind of okay versus that stuff. It's not like it's like killing the top meta. It's just like doing Annihilate's job a little better.
It only counts as Lickitung.
Yeah.
And Alolan Sunshine, but that's about it, really.
Yeah,
right,
really.
Butters,
really.
Listen, we could talk Pokemon forever with you, but we don't get to talk to you very often. And I've actually was just thinking about this. We've never had the opportunity to cast together. You guys had the opportunity to cast together a little bit at EUIC, so I can now flip this. Who's your favorite co-caster? And we're going to put you on the spot here.
Co-caster. Oh my goodness. You know what? I think I'm going to go with my partner.
Wait, Butters. What if we say each other? We can't lose.
Oh yeah, true. Yeah, true. 1. All right, let's do it on the count of 3. All right, you ready? 1.
No, I'm not ready.
Amanda. No. You know what? I have to go with the co-caster that I've been through so much with. I have to go with my co-caster, even though he balloons up this Ampharos situation and just distorts it. I mean, completely distorts it, cherry picking like no one else. But Caleb has been the co-caster that I've been through so much with in the championship series, and I've casted a lot of amazing battles with him. So I feel like I would be remiss not to say Caleb Pang as my favorite co-caster, because we've had the opportunity to be in a lot of amazing moments with each other.
Yeah, I mean, you guys even have like the nickname Pangers, right? I mean, that was like like the most well-known name, I think, I think you guys are the most well-known casting duo, and probably because you guys have been there from the beginning with each other, like you said. So I mean, that's a cool thing.
Yeah, I think we have casted, like, I mean, I don't know if it's like double-digit tournaments at this point together, but it's I think it is closing in on, or it might be over double digits. So, but the truth of the matter is, I genuinely enjoy casting with almost everyone. And from my point of view, I always try to make the cast as fun as possible, and I try to bring the energy up. And I love like any co-caster that's sitting next to me that's just like bringing the energy too, and then we're just building on each other. So I really enjoy casting with everyone in the championship series. But I will go with my co-caster, Caleb.
I remember when we were doing EUIC together, we had like 2 or 3 battles together. And the halfway you were standing up.
That's a Butter secret. He always stands up.
I don't even see you anymore, man. Like, you have to look down at the screen like that. I couldn't do that, but
no, I always try to hype myself up before, because you only get 3 series, and before you rotate. So I try to get in that mindset of the hype, and I try to keep it up. Sometimes maybe too much, because then it's like 5 o'clock on like day 2 that we go from like 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. and you're like, oh my god, this is like my 10th time standing up and doing jumping jacks today. Maybe this was a mistake. Maybe I should have just actually conserved some energy instead of trying to use it in warm up.
Do you have any funny or embarrassing casting moments? We've gone over some of ours in the past as well, but I'm interested, since you've been around since the very beginning, if there's anything that you're like, oh yeah, no, I remember this time was pretty good.
I don't know if I've told this story publicly, but the thing that jumps to mind is my first ever cast for Championship Series, which, like you mentioned before, was in Frankfurt, Germany for EUIC.
Mhm.
April 2022. We had just got there. I was casting with Zionic, actually, who I just casted with recently at EUIC, which is pretty cool. Uh, and it was my first time ever. And remember, this is like we had just joined Championship Series, so this was all the start of everything for everyone, top to bottom, for TPCI, for the production company, for the casters. Day one, first day of school, we're all like, don't know what to expect. And we go into the first cast. I think maybe Speedy and Caleb opened. I'm not sure who opened. Either they opened or we were second, but we're on the casting stage. It's me and Zionic. I think like for the first time ever, I'm like feeling really comfortable. Zionic's doing well. I feel like I'm doing well. I'm like, oh my God, we're here. We're doing this. We're nailing this. Like first ever cast. I was like gonna come out and everyone's gonna be like, oh my God, who are these Go casters? And then I come out in the first thing, they've been like messaging me like 3 times, like, look at camera. Hey, you look good today. Can you look at the camera? And like I just noticed that when I came out, like the thing was I didn't look at the camera one time
Oh
during this
no.
entire thing. So that was a fun moment for me to realize that there's an audience. You gotta look at that camera. But that was a humbling start to my championship series, where I had my first ever cast and I didn't look at the camera a single time. And it's not for one game; it was an entire 3 series interval that I went, I think, without looking at the camera once. And it was more exaggerated because Zionic was locked in on that camera. Zionic was like all in on that camera. Like Zionic was like dead center looking at it. And like my eyes were literally anywhere but the camera. But I I adapted. So
Yeah,
it's a
yeah.
different
And look,
story
look,
now.
look
But
how far you've come.
yeah.
All right. Well, speaking of, like, since you have been there from the beginning, we're getting to the very end of the podcast, and we have a staple question that we ask. And I feel like you are in a prime position for the question because you've seen so many games and been able to cast over all these games. So it's a two-parter. And I'm going to start with, who in this community do you consider a brawler? And so this would be a person who is maybe not super well known, but you think, oh, they're a scrappy player. They're a really good player. They just haven't had their breakout moment yet. And then who in this community would you consider a champion? And this is someone who's pretty well known, qualified for Worlds, and you think that has a really good shot of winning Worlds.
Okay. I actually have an answer for that first one. That could have caught me way off guard, but I will say someone who I felt like really had that mentality at NAIC was Ashton Ash, actually.
Mm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This was a trainer that I didn't know too much about, to be honest, going into it. And I feel like it fits your example perfectly. Not only that I feel like he had that scrappiness, that determination, his matches were awesome. Like
Yeah.
he had some of the best highlight matches of the entire tournament, and not just one series. He had 3 or 4 of them that were so
Mm-hmm.
fun to watch. So I'm gonna give that. What is a craballer?
Great.
Uh, I'm gonna give that to Ashton Ash because he really impressed me at NAIC with his showmanship, his on-stage determination, and just sometimes gameplay that where he felt like he didn't have any momentum, and then he just took the momentum and then took the battle, and it was just really fun to watch.
100%.
All right. And the second one is who you think is like someone who is favored going into the World Championships. Okay.
Yep. And this could be you personally. I mean, it doesn't have to be like, the favorite to win, but you're like, no, this person, this is my champion.
This is so hard because there is this gap in between, like there is this 2 month gap. So it's like it feels like people who had momentum, it loses a little of that momentum during this gap. But I really want to say Doonbug, but I'm hesitant because he obviously went on a run that is like unprecedented. Like he wins like 3 out of 4 tournaments in like like a 6 week span and gets runner up at EUIC. If we look at the pattern of last season, where in the top 3 were Axon and Wadaj, 2 trainers that proved that they could do it at a really high level, and Wadaj was the favorite coming in. I feel like I have to pick Doonbug as my favorite coming in just because what he's pulled off this season. So I'm gonna say Doonbug because he pulled off something in North America and even proved it in Europe. I mean, yes, he didn't win it. I mean, to very much
he came too uncomfortably close.
Yeah, he did. Martine was sweating for sure. But
every time I came across Butters after he lost to Xanadu, I was like, yeah, he's gonna go out soon. The Americans are not winning. I will joke with Doonbug about it as well.
I should have told this story when I was casting. I think I maybe Doonbug was in the semis, or maybe before that. I think maybe in the top 6 or whatever. He was casting a series. I believe he was down 0-1, and then he tied up the game number 2, and Martine was up next for casting, and I just see him pacing back and forth, just staring at the ground, just pacing as like the battle's going on, and then as it's clear that Doonbug is about to win, I just saw Martine stop pacing, and I could just see his back and his head was down, and I could just remember that image clearly from the caster booth. Yeah,
it was funny though. I'm happy with the way that went, and I'm sure Doonbug is as well.
Yeah,
Is crazy,
and it's obviously no shade to Doonbugger. He played up the villain so well. Coming out on stage pretending he was a bald eagle.
Did you hear the crowd when he lost to Sandu? Did you hear that backstage? Because they went.
Yeah, I mean, no one in Europe wanted to be able to hand another title over to another American coming over this season.
Doonbug is acceptable. Yeah. Nighttime Clasher. No, I'm kidding. I like Nighttime Clasher. But it's just an easy target.
Yeah. No, I mean, Doonbug has obviously come off of North American championships. Nighttime Clasher did not. So I know what you're talking about. He finally was able to break through against the competition in Europe.
Oh, and on that note, we're going to call an end to this one. Once again, Butters, thank you so much for coming on. Really excited to cast along, not with you, but alongside you in Honolulu. We're really excited to watch over your games as well, Martine. I think this will be the next time that we all are in one place at the same time.
It will be.
I can't wait. It's going to be a lot of fun. Maybe we'll all do something together.
We got to shoot hoops. We got to shoot hoops.
Oh, I would love to shoot hoops.
Yeah. Remember, we have to at least play horse or something, because I used to play basketball too when I was younger. And even though you have the height advantage, I think that, if we're not actually playing one-on-one, that maybe I could be able to do something here.
You honestly, I'm not the best horse player, so I might put my money on.
Oh, you're just gonna dunk? I'm already calling it. No dunks are allowed in horse.
Okay, all right, no dunks. It's okay. That's better for my knee anyway. But yeah, we're gonna shoot some hoops. Martine, you in?
Yeah, sure. Europeans are great at it. Yeah.
All right, shooting hoops in Honolulu, and for the rest of you guys, Thursdays is the time that Tap Tap Cast drops. We'll see you in the next episode.
Ciao.